Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Erb and Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development. Well, good morning, extraordinaires. Welcome back to another Be Extraordinary podcast episode. We have a special guest and a special edition today. Can I hear the audience roar real quick? We are live from our 2023 Annual Leadership Summit, where we just had the most epic evening with fun and laughs and celebration and opportunity for fellowship, and incredible trainings yesterday, and just a fantastic kickoff to our event. We are on day 2 on What's Next, and we have a special live edition for the Be Extraordinary podcast from stage with the Impact Award winner, Mr. Emer Elbo.
Thank you. What a surprise. Thank you.
So real quick, couple of housekeeping rules, gang. Try to keep very close to the mics. We're doing this for the first time. So Emer, you're the special guest of the guestess with the most, or the hostess with the mostest, I should say. So let's make sure we hear from you. But for those of you that are listening, and for new team members in the audience, the Impact Award is the highest honor inside of our walls. It is the person that represents the soft skill qualities and subjectivity impact on the organization for the year prior, so for our fiscal year. A lot of that has to do with culture, a lot of that has to do with leadership, a lot of that has to do with attitude. Whatever that person is doing and wherever that person is, they make a significant difference in the people's lives that they're around. And so we have these objective metrics where it's sales and retention and cross-selling policies and conversions, and all of these things are very important to have data-driven objective wins, but there are these subjective qualities that exist from unifying people and making true, real impact on the people around them that just don't go into a lot of that stuff. So for us, the human aspect of this achievement far outweighs anything that any of us could do for the year for any of the awards that we give out. So I just wanted to start off to say, Emer, it has been a pleasure to work with you, man. It's an honor to be your friend. It's an honor to run with you. The talent that's on this team, it blows me away. And so to receive that honor is just such a personification of just who you are as a human being. And I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you. That's really nice. Thanks, Brad.
So let's for the audience and for the people out here that haven't had a chance to hear your story, how did you find Erb and Young, and what did that early part of your journey look like?
Yeah, so I was introduced to a friend of a friend. So I was with my now life partner. She's really good friends and best friends of Matt Eckberg, who's a former Impact Award winner, team lead, and now
running
an IO.
packs.
What's that?
They run in packs.
They run in packs. That's right.
We went out on a first date. It was just a meet and greet. We wanted to, kind of talk about some stuff, have some drinks, and kind of hit it off. We had a great night over in downtown Winter Garden.
Pilars.
Naturally.
Pillar.
Pillars.
That's all I see. That's all I hear. That's all I want to say. But we had a great night, and it just stemmed into a awesome friendship. We ended up hanging out a bunch, and it was the nagging question of getting to know each other, but realizing that he had a lifestyle that was so attractive. It was really one of those things where you wanted to be him, you wanted to be around Matt, and then you started to find out more what he was doing and the career path he was in, and then I started to reflect on mine, and it. At that time in my age and my life, I looked at myself and my successes, and I was very proud, but I wasn't fulfilled. So I wanted to kind of dig deeper, and he asked the question, are you happy? Ultimately, once you're in the dark and you're kind of thinking to yourself, you're like, no, I'm not happy. So that's kind of how it started.
Wow. We had I want to hear from Rod Taylor here because that's really cool for you to share that. Number one, that's cool. That takes a level of humility to do that, and obviously to share that in front of this group is really cool.
It's kind of it's like hard and easy to talk about.
Yeah,
It's
I get
because
it.
you spend a lot of time doing things that you think make your life really fulfilled, and it's not a waste, right? Because everybody I've met along the way has somehow built me into the person I am today. So I don't regret any of those things, but there's that, that clicking moment where you realize like maybe there's something better and bigger for you.
That's really cool.
I would chime in. One thing I borrow from your journey, you talked about you spent all these years doing the thing, but there's no wasted motion, right? And I've seen you integrate what you've done in your past careers into your now passion and career and have success. And what I mean by that is, in Emer's role as a team lead, and marketing is obviously the main priority for him is getting out, seeing referral sources, so on and so forth. And I've seen you integrate your love for cooking and preparing food and serving people, that hospitality vibe, into what you're doing with marketing, right? So they'll have events, he'll cook out, so on and so forth. So I think it's cool. I've learned a lot from you to say, hey, you had a line, keep your passions, keep your hobbies, keep the things that you love alive in your career because you can integrate those and get mileage out of them. So I think that's a cool part of your journey now is reflecting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, it's like I mentioned, it's nothing is wasted, and then you figure out over the years, you have your tool belt of what you can use, for the purpose of whatever function you're doing at the time, like cooking. One of my biggest joys is cooking with Rod and with Spencer, and when the team comes out to an event, it's like it reminds you that you're not a chef, you're not a restaurant manager, but it's something that you love to do. With the people you still, love to do insurance with too. So it's that intermingling and coming together of certain talents, and it's kind of like an all-encompassing. Like I did all those things to be where I'm at to do these things with these people.
Yeah.
So
What comes to my mind is just because that's what you do doesn't mean who you are, right? Sometimes we define who we are by what we do, and I mean professionally. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So that's cool. You get to hang on to all the things that you love, but integrate that into something else. That's cool. Rodney?
Emer, I think about your journey. I know your story, and I remember the day when you met Matt. I remember how much you guys hung out, but I also remember the battle you had, right? We refer to absolute income, and we refer to relative income. And I know you came from you had a high income, come from a background with, you made a lot of money, but what you had to do to earn that money, right? The time you had to be away from your family, the weekends, the holidays. So it's like, and I relate to that a lot because that was my story. I made a good income, but it was at the expense of, a lot of miles on the road a month. Talk to us about that journey. Talk to us about that decision. Because I think there's listeners out there that, you may be faced with, you're in a situation or you're in an occupation that you may not be fulfilled in, but it's like there's a lot that you would think on the surface is keeping you there, i.e. money, right? But when you start thinking about what it means to buy back some of your time or buy back some of your lifestyle, talk to us about what that has meant to you.
yeah, so you make an income, but you don't realize to make that income you have to pay into it. So you're constantly, and I'm not talking about what you invest into your business or your craft, but what you give up on a daily basis. You give up a lot of opportunity. And again, not monetarily, but you give up hanging with your family, holidays, weekends. You miss out on some of the colorful, like really cool things in life that you see a lot of people enjoy. And you mentioned, I did have a really good pay. And I was proud of, kind of the experiences and the stature, the labels, because that's what you work towards, but you're giving up constantly little things, and you're always in the, kind of observing them from afar, and then you're also giving up dreams, things that you don't have that aren't tangible. You're also giving up the opportunities to be able to be happier in the future. Having a family, having kids, having a meaningful relationship with your best friend, spending time with your parents. That's one of the biggest things where I got a lot of that time back. and all I had to do was give up a little money for a very short amount of time, you know. And that, you know, I think of it to this day. It's like I don't look back. You know, I go to the restaurant that I once managed, and I love it. I love being in there, but I also don't want to ever be back there at that capacity. If I'm not eating at a table, I'm certainly not going to be, you know, that's, I'm not going to be there.
That's
I
awesome.
want to jump in. You said, you know, taking a little bit less money, but I also think it's the ability to give yourself permission to learn something new, right? You gave
Absolutely.
yourself permission to not know the answers. You gave yourself permission to learn a new craft. And I think that takes a level of humility and submitting the ego, especially at an age as we get older. You know, you're 35, 36 when you make the jump. And so I did want to speak to that a little bit. I think both parts are a big deal, right? Taking a step back in income, but also taking a step back and being able to check the ego and saying, hey, I'll be a white belt. I'll learn this. I'll submit to the process.
Yeah, it's you know, even in my restaurant career, I took a bunch of steps back, knowing that I would bounce back and, you know, excel. You slow down and speed up, but getting into insurance, you don't know anything. You know, I can't carry any.
Gosh, yeah.
There's really no like skill in the restaurant industry specifically, like serving tables, cooking food.
Food
That-
spoilage. I'm
Yeah,
sure you know
it's
food spoilage.
like HACCP, first and first. You don't apply that in insurance. Yeah, it's just one of those things where, okay, I'm just going to dumb myself down, be a sponge, assume I don't know anything, and I have every bit to learn and be coached. And you know, it is a reality check, because then you're surrounded by people who know this stuff and do it at a high pace, high caliber, and you're like, okay, I'm in the right spot. I'm not at the top anymore. I am nothing. This is good. And then you nestle into it, and you're, okay, I'm where I need to be, and I'm looking at the people I need to follow. And it was very easy. It wasn't, you know, I didn't have to talk myself into going to work.
Talk to me about, and transparently, because for anybody that's in the room or listening, how long did it take? You made a decision, right? That decision came through multiple conversations. And I don't think we've ever pushed harder than we did with you. You know, usually it's you make an offer, and you know, we have a philosophy, you know, amateurs convince, professionals sort. But it's also, from a recruiting standpoint, sometimes someone needs a little nudge because it's scary, you know. So it's like you got to know when to just be there when the time is right, and then also help someone make a good decision if you truly believe it's better, it will better their life. And I think that was very prevalent through the conversations with you. But there had to been some sort of reluctance, because that was the reluctance, right? And there's this concept of taking a step back. It's really not to me, it's more of like, if we think in linear, like of our path to wherever we need to go, it's not a straight line. You know, it's like a stock price. You know, it goes up and down, but over a long period of time, it trends in the right direction. So a step back is probably tough to say, because if you knew that you had to take a step back in order to get to where you're trying to go, it's not really a step back, it's just a detour. It's just a change in strategy. But how in the midst of it, it feels like that. So going from, I'm the top end of the food chain, people report to me, I know exactly what I'm doing, I feel confident in my craft. Coming into an environment like you just said, how long did it take to settle in, right? I can imagine you coming in for the first day, sitting at the desk, those 4 screens, don't know anything, right? How much was the overwhelm? How much was the vulnerability? How much was the humility? Did you have any days that you go home and say, man, was this a good decision? Talk to us about kind of the, you know, that maybe that however long that first point of time was before maybe you settled in.
Yeah, it was last week.
That's a real answer, right? I feel all of that.
No, I mean, those guys, I mean, Tori, Matt, Rob, and then Chris, really brought me under their wing. I've never felt more comfortable on, you know, the first couple weeks of work. And then getting the occasional Rod pops in, or Taylor, or Brett. It really felt like I'm where I needed to be. And I felt like I've been there for a while, not knowing anything about insurance, but it's like I'd known these guys for so long. I was quickly brought into the fold, taught step by step. It's through practicum, so you got to get your hands dirty. Just pick up some calls. Don't talk about coverage. I got reminded by Tori all the time, like, we're not talking about coverage today. Not this week, not next. You're not talking about coverage. But
You weren't like Eric, who told people that stuff wasn't covered on the first day? Where's Eric? Love that.
No, it's fine. I have my customer service license. It's fine.
No, it wasn't anything like that. But my team kept me in check, and I think the philosophy was you're basically getting paid to learn, and learning was such a big thing in that position because I knew I didn't know anything specific to insurance, and I had Robbie, who was the teacher in proximity, who just I learned after him because we're right next to each other most days, and I just started to mimic what these guys were saying to their clients. And I couldn't do a video to save my life. I was I was choking on the mic
The
for the first video.
For the listeners at home, the video proposal, right? When you'd
Right,
send out a
right.
proposal,
Yeah.
we'd do a video. And so that was challenging.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing videos around you, and by the way, we're in an open bullprint, right?
So
It's not
bad.
like you have your own desk where you could close the door. You got to record this video in front of 4 other people that are right behind you. And if you mess up 3 times, you have to stop and start over again, right?
And it
And there's
wasn't easy.
shenanigans going in.
Exactly. So it wasn't really easy in that room because you have Matt in the background, on the 5th cut, and he's coming in like picking his nose or something. Just doing something that Matt would do, and it's frustrating, but it was also so fun. And just the camaraderie really made it feel super comfortable. But yeah, it was cool to learn. It was cool to learn all those new things.
So you don't know anything about insurance. You're told not to talk about coverage. You're learning the basics of modeling those that have already done it. You're in an environment where you're getting osmosis. You're learning through being with other people that are doing the deal. Nobody picked up production faster than you. At that moment in time, you picked it up faster than anybody else. I think it was the fastest anybody had got to the senior agent position. I mean, I think in like 4.5 months, 5 months, you were writing a consistent amount of. I mean, it was ridiculous. We looked at each other, and we mentioned it yesterday. You were a student and a sponge. But what is the skill sets from going from nothing insurance related, no clue, to being able to be proficient that quickly? You obviously had skills from your prior craft that were transferable, because that just doesn't make any sense. So what was it about the way you approached it that you believe gave you success early on?
Well, I did know that to be the best, you got to learn from the best. You got to remain in close proximity to the people that you really admire. So it was easy there, checkbox. I knew that you need to take good notes, and taking good notes was in the form of just a binder with that you'd write down everything. You didn't know if that information had really anything to do with how you could be a better salesperson, but you still wrote it down. Maybe I could use it in the future. And then tracking and logging. I mean, in the restaurants, we have what's called, a mise en place, getting your mess in place. It's French for something. Who knows? But it's mise en place. You have to have everything in place. You have to have all your tools. We talk about showing up right. Here at Urban Young, well, that's how you show up right. You make sure you have all your materials, all your tools you need to do your job at the simplest form. And then you could expound on that, build on it. But having everything in front of you is kind of a restaurant thing or a chef's thing. Wow. And without that in this industry, you really can't get anywhere, because if you don't have your appropriate start up to the day with all your materials, your note-taking supplies, or even team members around you, if they're not there, then you're really not showing up for your team as well. Really just the showing up aspect,
Wow.
and really tying that in from my previous careers.
I'm reminded, I just kind of popped in my head. I'm reminded of hearing your story, and you go from a place where everybody's looking at you for the answers in your restaurant career to a place where the only way you can get answers is through collaboration. And I'm just reminded, I think some of the neatest stories, some of the funnest stories that I think we have inside of Urban Young are the people that came in hungry to learn the business, getting paid to learn the business, and just absorbed in the fabric of that collaborative environment where, we help each other learn together. People are listening to help, not listening to criticize. And I think that's a cheat code, right? Because there's been so much collaboration across our platform and all the offices. And I know sometimes when you're first new and you're first getting on the phone, that's very foreign to people. It's like, I got to get on the phone in front of people that have been doing this. Like, I feel weird. But I think that, you talk about how do you get to production, effective production in 4.5 months. And the only thing I can think about is, and I think we do it different, right? I mean, I realize that, there's people out there that may agree or disagree, but I just think that the environment being one of encouragement and team lends itself to shorter learning cycles, compressed success, because of just the buy-in that people have and the understanding they have when they come in here, that we're here to help each other. And I just think that's just a way to quantify what we've talked about for a long time, is the fact that, you can come in with zero basis, zero experience, coachable, hungry, show up with a good attitude, prepared to do it over a long period of time. I said nothing in that little bit about insurance. And then because of that, you become a good insurance person because you become a better person. I don't know. I'm just reminded of that hearing your story. And I know there's plenty of stories out here. And I think that's something that everybody that goes through that weird phase of, my God, they want me to get on the phone or do something in front of my peers, I think it's a reminder to the new person to lean into that, because that's what's going to help you learn and get better quicker. But to the veteran, remember there's eyes on you. There's people watching. And the more you're willing to expose your skills, the more you're probably helping somebody that's brand new ramp up quicker and make an impact quicker. I'm just reminded of that with you, man, and I'm just makes me proud of you. And I think humility being able to do that. But certainly, I think that speaks to your squad, the guys that you talked about, and it's a neat reminder to me.
Yeah, it was the standard that exceptional salespeople. I mean, I had examples, but that was just the standard. Yeah, they had a standard where they wrote $50,000 to $60,000 in premium every month. So I figured, hey, if I'm amongst these guys, I got to carry my weight, and I'm not going to let the training go to waste. If I was paid to learn, maybe that that money had to go somewhere, and I had to show for it. So there was that internal pressure also, and it wasn't a negative pressure. It was just like, wow, this is infectious. These guys do this so regularly with ease, and I want to be that. I want to mimic that and maybe take it to another level or share whatever I learn along the way with somebody else.
I'm reminded with Rod's comments too. It's like, it's almost like the more you know about a thing, the less coachable you are, right? The more you think you know, right? So you know a lot about insurance, but if you can have somebody come in and have success within 4.5 months and do the same level of business, like what are they doing? That's what I want to be a student of, right? Because so I think it's a lesson to all of us, even the veterans in the room. Be careful, what you say or what you think because it might be the thing that's keeping you back from the thing you want. And the other thing that reminds me is that we talk about the slight edge, but I think when you talk about getting to work, preparing a notebook, being organized, taking good notes, you think about, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason that you learned it as quick as you did, right? That's the slight edge at work, is because when you come to work and you have an intention, you're looking at, it's like what we talked about this weekend. You get in, you get out what you put in. And so, yeah, I was thinking about this. Like, when did the switch flip for you? Because look, we're talking about all this stuff that's fun and soft skills and humility and coachability. Like, you've done some badass stuff. Like, you've written a lot of business. You've made this company a lot of money. You've made yourself a lot of money. And the trend that you're on is you're going to make a lot of money. So, but the way you approach it is such a clue to me to say you're putting first things first in their proper order. So that's where the trajectory lends. But just because you have more time in the business doesn't mean the trajectory is naturally going to go there. It's your approach to your craft that has always been, for me, when I watch your story play out, you've just approached it in such a way that it's like, yeah, you have a level of humility, but yeah, you get your mess in place, as you would say it, and you have your notes ready, and you're paying attention. And so every day is not just a day that goes by. Every day you learn something. You're able to apply it, and you're able to get better. So.
Yeah, and personal development was like that was foreign to me, like it was probably for a lot of people in this room. But I remember when I started to hit plateaus, and I thought I knew exactly what the guys were doing, and I was doing what they were doing. Hey, I'm doing the thing, I'm doing the quotes, I'm sending them out in time, following up, but something's not clicking.
Wow, this is a gem.
Yeah, it was just so, man, there's nothing I'm doing wrong.
The X's and O's are the same.
They're playing itself out, and I experienced quick success.
Except the videos.
Except the videos.
Yeah.
Videos are still a struggle. It still is to this day. I ain't gonna lie. Spencer, Rob, you know that. But injecting a little bit of personal development, getting comfortable with being vulnerable and sharing your weaknesses and your failures, which I'd never done, by the way. I had never done in my previous industries, and being vulnerable to change and coaching and really learning. I mean, the calls every week, every other week, it was so foreign, so uncomfortable. Leading my first call, and then I started to see the clues that were riddled throughout the company. And it's similar to the theme of this year, isn't it? I mean, what got you here won't get you there. So that's how it was in my earlier days. The first year, cool, I got here. I could do the same thing and hopefully change and get better. But I started to realize what got me here won't get me there. So you have to make tweaks, personally, develop a little bit more, and dedicate yourself to your craft.
I think it's interesting to me to hear you say that, right? We talk about, one of the inventories early on is, take two people that look the same. One has a good philosophy and one has a bad philosophy. The person with the good philosophy will have a good attitude, will likely be coachable. The person with a bad philosophy will likely not be, but they have the same skills. Why does the same role apply to, play out for them differently? And I think about philosophy. I think a lot about what you just said. I think it's a good reminder that's why it's a good place to start. What are your philosophies? Are they pretty much positive? Positive philosophies lead to a positive attitude, lead to a positive outcome, lead to positive results. Where negative philosophies lead to a negative attitude, lead to negative results ultimately. So that's a good reminder of why we embed personal development so deeply into what we do.
What's crazy though is what you just said. You can't see that on the surface. Right. It's like he's saying, he's trying to figure out, well, I'm doing the same thing.
Right.
I'm doing the same thing. I'm sending the same emails. I'm sending the same quotes. I'm using the same carriers. Why are these guys having more success?
What is
that? What are you doing?
Maybe it's me. It's obviously, I don't know. A lot of people think, man, it's obviously me. I'm doing exactly what they're doing. I'm not getting the results. Maybe I'm just not built for this. Maybe there's something maybe I'm not, maybe that, there's a lot of those questions that creep in and people don't buy what you say, they buy your music. And the music is the symphony that is so context driven. There's just tens of thousands of different experiences and information that you draw in contextually that comes through in your message. You can't teach that. You have to go to the source over and over and over and over again and become the person that does that instead of learn the skills that allow you to transfer that belief. So
say it louder. Yeah, say it louder. That was really good. And I think there's a lot of producers in the room. I think anytime you learn a new skill that's foreign to you, like you think about first lines producers that first start to market, you say, well, I can write business, I can take inbound phone calls. But the minute I have to go call on a mortgage broker or a realtor, I'm massively uncomfortable. And well, what do I say? What do I say to those people? And like you just said, reminds me, Brett, it's like it's not about what you say. It's about who you are and whether that person's attracted to who you are or not, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can say whatever you want, right? So I think that's a clue in your story that we can borrow from. And I really, again, it just comes back to the humility. That's not an easy thing to process when you look in the mirror and go, yeah, maybe it is me. Maybe it's something that about who I am or my philosophy rather than what I'm doing. And we've always talked about how to do the hows, right? Everyone wants to, you learn something new and everyone's like, how do I do it? What do I say? You know, yada, yada. It's like, it's not about that. You got to go the long road to know how to do the hows, because if you give somebody the how-tos, like you said, Roddy, you have one person, both know how to do it, but one has good philosophy, one has bad philosophy, and over a long period of time, that person's going to leave that person in the dust.
Right? Here's a philosophy that helps with that. You got to be genuine to you. Right? If you're with Matt, and I'm just using Matt as an example, and Matt's talking to a client about a particular proposal, if you try to do it the exact same way Matt does, it's going to come off as not genuine, and it doesn't hit. It doesn't work because it's not genuine to you. Now, you may send out a quote the same way to him as him. You may do a video proposal. There's frameworks that are the same, right? There's steps along the way that are the same, but there's a difference between modeling and mimicking, right? We want to model people. We don't want to mimic them, right? And so how do you take these components in your life and your business and your craft and make them genuine to you, right? There are patterns that exist with all people that are having success. You're in that room, there's patterns. You're seeing everybody do it at a high level, but they all have different personalities. So you're watching the patterns between multiple people indifferent to their personalities, right? And subconsciously you pick it up. I think about environment, right? A lot of places say, I work from home, I work better from home. For what? That day? That week? That month? Give me a group of people that work in close proximity together over a long period of time, and you will crush everyone, because you're violating the principle of the mastermind. You're violating the principle of all this information that's coming at you at all times. You're picking it up and you're not even noticing it. All of a sudden you're saying stuff that you heard 2 years ago, and that's just coming to you subconsciously. So it's a perfect example of why being in proximity is so powerful to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, and it's like a great example right now is like the more we grow as a company, now you have more people to learn from. You know, I learned things from Devin. I just met Devin, from Alexia, like just learning different things that you never thought you could pick up. They have life experiences that you could never relive for yourself or them. But yeah, that proximity has been crazy. I mean, we just opened up our office. It's been a year, guys. We opened up our office in Mount Dora.
Just renewed the lease.
Yeah, I got that text and I froze. But you know, ever since we got into the office together as a team, it felt like it's just an added boost. More than a boost, it was, hey, we got our team together. Let's make some music.
That's right. And to give context, you were operating in that market without an office space. So for a short amount of time, your team was working remotely.
Correct.
And I remember you sharing with me frustrations where you're like, man, everyone's on it. It's just we're not clicking, you know? Like we're on it, but there's just chemistry missing. And you're like, I just can't wait to get, you know, and you're like, I'm getting these referrals now because I just feel like we got to get people.
Yeah.
And you came from an environment of that, stripped away from that, where everybody had autonomy to do their own thing, and then you feel this lack of cohesion, and it just seems like once you guys got back together, it was an explosion.
I think about downtown Mount Dora, you know, where that office is, you know, you talk about chemistry. You can feel the energy. You can feel the energy when you walk. Number one, Mount Dora is, you know, little tiny old Mount Dora, right? What a little market. Why would you put an office in a little old market like that? And I smile at that because I know what you guys are doing, but the little town has energy, but then when you couple you guys in there, and I've experienced it a bunch when I've felt it, or I've been there, you know, it's special. You guys are putting off, you're attracting some stuff just based on how your chemistry's working.
What's interesting is what Brett just said kind of is another point as to where objectively, like working from home and being separated is no big deal, right? Like you're like, well, it's the same thing, it's more convenient, I don't have a commute, yada, yada. Like it doesn't make sense but over a long period of time, it's one of those things, kind of like a philosophy that you just go, I just don't know why they're winning. And I think that would be a thing you, in hindsight, point back to, and it's because, well, they're in proximity to each other, right? They know what's going on in each other's lives. They eat lunch together. They talk about how this call went when they got off the call, right? There's these little contextual things. And sometimes it's not the big things that lead to success, right? It's just these little nuggets to how to ask a question a little bit of a different way. And it's really, really, really hard to do that when you're not in proximity.
Yeah, I mean, just working next to Spencer too. I mean, he would have a phone call, or he'd be on the phone with an underwriter. I mean, his experience is now everybody's experience because we've heard it.
Amen.
We're just
1
picking
plus
up on
1
those
more than
things.
2.
There you go.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, man, what I would love to do, anytime you guys want to jump in. But I would love to open it up to you guys to ask questions. Maybe you've got some things that are on your mind that maybe you've heard today that you'd love to elaborate on or get context, or maybe you just have questions for Emer about his background. But we'll do a little Q&A if anybody has anything they want to add, and then we'll come back to close it out.
BY, we need a mic in the.
John's got a question. John, can you come up just a little bit here so we can give you the mic?
There we go.
Emer, I want to go back to
John.
kind of the earlier part of your story where you talked about, giving up the big money, making that shift. I went through something very similar. I was laughing last night. I looked at my first year commission. It was $13,585.
Oh,
Wow,
man.
how
welcome
about
to-
that?
So just for the
Welcome to
record,
the
if you're
club.
getting an insurance, your first year you're going to make $13,000. But my first commission check, first month was $742. Rent was $700.
Wow.
And I'd given up a big commission, 4 kids at home. And I remember thinking, I didn't give up money, I gave up a lifestyle. I went back to mow my own yard. Sure, we didn't go out to dinner 2 or 3 nights a week. So you have to make some sacrifices, but if you could, think back to that, and if someone were coming to you today and saying, hey, Emer, I can't make this jump, I make this money, what would you tell them, having gone through it yourself?
Good question.
That's a great question because, that was very, it hit home. I'm with my partner in life, my best friend, Amanda, and she was supportive throughout the whole thing. Whatever I did, she would have supported, If I said, forget these guys, she'd be like, yeah, forget these guys. But no, she trusted that I made the right decision. And then you lean into family. You lean into a plan. You get all your mess in place. You look at what can go for your future self, what your future self is going to thank you for. And you're going to let go of the things you're not going to really miss because there's this unexplainable kind of burst of success. And I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking, you're chasing something a little bit more special than you've ever had before. And we had to give up a lot of things. I mean, not going to a restaurant. I was a big foodie, right? So I wanted to try out restaurants, and that was just our thing. We didn't do that for a while, but we knew the spring would come. I mean, we talked about that. We knew that this is just a phase. This is just, let's buckle down. Let's get rid of the things that kind of dilute life anyway. Because if you want a better life, you got to kind of give up the things that are just distractions too. If you want to improve, you need to create some space. You can't be diluted with a lot of just distractions to get to a further place and to a better, more fulfilling kind of future. Cool. So it was rather hard to let go at the time. But looking back, I don't even remember what we gave up. But I literally took a 50% reduction in pay. For the sheer fact is, I want to be like him. I want to be like him and these guys here in the room. And I want to live those lives. And I'd rather give up my life now, making less, to be more like that.
That's cool. Well, good question. Good question. Anybody else?
Great question.
Hey, B-Boy.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about becoming worthy of being modeled. And I think one of the biggest things for you just personally is that I think you're someone that people will follow. I think that's one of your biggest progressions that I saw since you've worked here. So my question for you is that a lot of this to me sounds like delaying gratification, right? So you took the pay cut, you came on board, you learned it. When you said yes to leading the Mount Dora office, what was the catalyst for you? Because that's essentially starting back at zero, or starting backwards again, right? So you've already done it once. What was it about saying, hey, I'm ready for this next challenge? Like, what was that catalyst for you to take the team lead?
Good question.
Man, you guys are digging. That's so good. I feel it in my plums. Oh man, the heavy hitters.
We gotta edit that out.
Yeah.
Emer,
Don't edit it.
Emer forgot we're live. That's all good.
Yeah, don't edit it, Lorenzo. If you're listening, don't edit it. No, it's one of those. I did it once. I'm going to do it again, and I'm seeing it happen. I'm seeing it with Matt and his IO program. I'm seeing it Tori, his Tampa. This guy named Nick, who's just like out the gate, just crushed the game in Jupiter, and I'm seeing all these guys do it, and it's like, well, I got to do it. Like if these guys are doing it, I want to be them. I've been saying I want to be them. I got to do it too. So it was always a little challenge. I mean, it was supposed to be an easier type of transition where things fall through and they don't work out the way they're planned, but you're still sticking to your guns. The attraction was you get to work with Robbie, you get to work with Spencer, you have your own office. It's like get to be closer to home. So there was a lot of attractive things about that, but at the end of the day, you just want what the company wants. You're surrounding yourself with people that want to excel. And again, you just want to do it at a bigger, faster level. I gave up a lot when I started with Urban Young. I was willing to give up more to get even further, even if it's just incrementally
That's awesome.
more. And the trends of the years was New Frontiers. I'm like, man, I want to be a part of that. I want to be one of the guys that gets to seek out more opportunity, expand the company.
Yeah, for those that are 2 years ago, our summit theme was New Frontiers. And so it was the year we kind of put a flag in the ground and said, we're gonna go to places that we've never gone before. And we asked everybody to pick what that is for them. And I know a lot of people in the room are still on that journey. It's funny, we do these summits, you think, oh, well, it's 1 year. It's like it takes a long time to execute these missions. Client experience was last year. We're still on that journey, right? So as you with this type of stuff, just know that just because an arbitrary number for a fiscal year marks a theme and a new theme doesn't mean that those themes are over. And I know that I think about Emer a lot with the New Frontiers, and I know he's still on that new frontier. So I just want to give context to that. That's great.
I want to circle back to John's question real quick, too. I think, John, one of the things that for me resonates is when I talk to people that are new, especially people that I know have taken a pay cut, one of the messages I want people to hear is it's only about money until it's not, right? Nobody's asking you to come here and work for less money, but you got to step into that person that has earned the right, has become more to earn more, right? Amen. So I think that's relevant here, and I think that, Emer, you embody that, right? It's like nobody said take a pay cut forever. They just said let's take a pay cut, learn a new craft, and along the way, and personally for me, I think you're here, you back off to get here. And I think that's what we're seeing with you and a lot of people in the room, everybody that you mentioned that were part of your initial journey, Matt, Rob, Tori. So I think that's kind of what comes to mind, John, when you ask that question.
Well, I mean, a lot of the things we talked about is creating a path to unlimited. In order to get a path to unlimited, you have to be on the right path, right? There's a lot of paths that have big blockades and barricades on them, right? So first, it's not a matter of what the objective number is as far as income, because candidly, I would rather make nothing as long as I'm on the right path, because then I know that I don't have to switch paths, right? It's choppy to switch paths. It takes a lot of energy to change paths. It's frustrating to change paths. It's life-changing to change paths. It's like, I know a lot of, for me, I was like, I'm just looking for the right path. Give me the right path, and then I'll go to work. I don't have a problem with work. I'll work hard. I just want to know and feel certain that I'm in the right place doing the right thing. When I go to home at night, I want to be frustrated by not getting the outcomes, not frustrated that I might be in the wrong place, that I might be going to a place I might end up 2, 3, 4, 5 years later and go, shoot, this wasn't what I thought it was. Now I got to go back to the start and find a different path. So
a lot of the transition too was from just lack of information. And not knowing, but when you trust in something like the personalities of the company that you're, just potentially gonna join, it makes it easier. But I will say that I wasn't convinced. I wasn't recruited. I just had conversations with the right people, and they told me exactly what it is. They didn't paint a pretty picture. They gave me the real expectation.
Yeah.
But they made it certain that I will learn, that you will be working with good people, and you won't have anything to regret. I mean, they were very confident about the company they were, what we were, and it wasn't a convincing, like, you go for job interviews and they're there trying to give you all this stuff and convince you and recruit you. It did not feel like that at all.
Well, that's cool.
At
That's
all.
a clue. That's great. I appreciate that. Anybody else have a question? Mr. Nick Patty, this is great, guys. I appreciate it. You guys getting a lot out of this? All right, good.
Emer, super cool to hear your journey, man. A little more granular too, like the ins and outs of your personal journey. It's cool to hear. A ton of respect for it. For someone that goes through that and has the catalyst and then talks through the nuts and bolts, like can you do it financially, and says, yeah, I'm going to do it. I need to do it. What would, from your experience, be for someone of, like journey of 1,000 miles takes one step? What should that first step be? Is it find a mentor, find someone that's done that before? Is it seek education? To take the pressure off and say, if I could do it again, I would do this. What would that be?
Good question.
Wow.
Another good one.
Just another good one. The IOs are coming in hot.
That's a clue.
Yeah, I mean, if you have that, I always boil down to support system, my family and everything, and having that person kind of encourage me and remind me again if I'm going in the right direction with this answer. Break it down for me. Like,
What's the first step? What would you do first? Gun to your head.
first step, going into new career, just getting your affairs straight. Go ahead. Yeah.
Not necessarily a career, right? Maybe it's a personal change. Maybe it's a career. Maybe it's a step up in your current career.
Yeah.
Mentoring thing.
Are
To
you
have
asking, like, what's the number one priority mentally that you're preparing for? Like, when you make a decision, whether it's a new path.
To ensure success for whatever you're embarking on,
Okay.
what would be the first
think I
thing?
got it.
that
What's the
comes to
first thing
your
that
mind?
pops in your mind?
Discipline. Are you the type of person that is worth getting the offer in the first place? Are you embodying what you think you're going to put out? Are you prepared? If you look at yourself in the mirror, are you really the guy? And if you're not, are you willing to do the things that it's going to take to be the guy? And you got to be brutally honest with yourself, and you look at your past experiences. Have I been the guy before? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, maybe you need to be the guy before you be the guy. You really got to think internally if you're cut out for this stuff. And there's an honest answer that you could only answer. And you can't look to models, and you could have all the best models in the world, but if you're not willing to change or to continue to be the person you think you are at a high level, then you're not going to get anywhere. That's just a brutal, honest thing.
Man, I'd love to chime in too. That's okay. I know the question wasn't for me, but I'm going to take this.
Please.
You just mentioned something that really struck a chord about, and this is how I felt on my journey, which was different, but it was very much the same, coming from nothing kind of thing. And can I be the guy? So I had to look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm not the guy, right? Mm-hmm. And then you just said the question, could I be the guy? And I said, I think I could be the guy. But I think what is a cheat code and what moved me to action is that I had other people that believed in me before I believed in myself.
Well said.
And I think all the leaders in the room, which we all are, is that sometimes you have to give somebody permission to believe in themselves again. And I know for me that was Brett and that was Rod. And I think your journey is no different in the way that sometimes the ego wants to pump ourselves up and we want to look at people and say, oh, wow, they're just such a self-starter. They're so internally driven. But the reality is what really moved them to action, what really got them on the other side of fear and doubt and insecurity was somebody looking into their soul and said, man, you're good enough. You're good enough. And so I just think that's relevant.
That's cool.
Yeah, having that support system, like I said. Obviously, there's going to be times where you're faced with projects and things that you might have to do on your own, and then you could simply go back to an earlier time where, man, I remember when Brett told me, or when Rod or Taylor told me that, and I get really cool, like, heartfelt texts all the time from these guys, like, just reminding me that you're not alone. They could be hundreds of miles away, and then I'll get little things here from Chris, or just reminding me that you're doing it. Like, there's no joke. You're actually doing what everybody expects you to and more. So it's, if you don't have a reminder right in front of you, there's several experiences and several examples through your text messages and previous conversations. So that kind of fuels your urge to keep pushing. And these people rely on you to succeed because they want to succeed too.
That's cool. Well, as we'll close out here today, Emer, we want to honor you in front of your peers, in front of the people that love you, that care about you. One last final word for everybody in the room after the culmination of the journey. I know you mentioned it was yesterday, right? You said, when did I know? It was yesterday, the emotion that you had with winning the Impact Award. It just seemed almost as if there was this incredible exhale and this incredible triumph and emotion, and it was moving for me, and I know it was moving for a lot of people. Asked me what their favorite part was yesterday, and multiple people had said that. Maybe before we close out here with parting thoughts, what would you want to kind of leave everybody with today?
Well, it's every year I attend, the summit, and I see my peers win this award. It was so emotional for me, and every single time the name is called, I always say to myself, "Well, that makes sense." I saw that coming. Wow, Eric Atzma, Tori Scarborough, those guys. It's like totally makes sense, and I was just hoping, with all the things I've gone through, and you don't think about you do all this stuff to get an award, but it all just kind of poured in. Like, my name is up there. I wonder if they think that makes sense. That's Emer. Yeah, knew that. I saw that coming.
It's amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Emer Elbo. Remember to subscribe to the Be Extraordinary podcast, ladies and gentlemen.